Atlanta getting serious, real, authentic feedback on why men don't go to church.
If you got more, and that ratio is more against it, more than actually involved in being into the life, then it shows. The numbers speak. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah,
right.
Numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
That's true. What
Like, it's a church right here. These people don't even speak English.
What?
You say praise the Lord. I'm Muslim, and I say praise the Lord. They turn around and look at you.
Some male sexual proclivities don't allow them the space to feel like they get fair membership to that church. Wow.
Oh, they probably don't feel like related in the church. Like maybe the message isn't geared towards them.
I hear you. What things do some people say? Like things that you've heard? Because people gonna say things to you that they gonna say around me. So what things have you heard other black men say about church that I would never be privy to? We are having conversation about Sex in the Church, the podcast, where we have faith-based, biblically informed conversations about sex, sexuality, and sexism. Thank you all so much. This evening, I have a wonderful group of scholars, experts, pastors, and community leaders here to have this very vital conversation on sex in the church tonight. And the number one question we're asking is, the number one question that I went street beat on MLK in Atlanta and asked was, why is it that so many Black men seem to not be coming to church? According to Pew Research, prior to in 2017, prior to the Rona coming down, then we had what was reported 52% of Black men attending church regularly, while it was said that 60% of African Americans in all were going to church. More than whites, more than Hispanics. But now it says that a whopping 83% of Black men report believing in God, having their spiritual life, strong parts of their life, but also praying daily, but also not attending church regularly. Please, let's delve into, we know why the drop in numbers, but why is it that 83% of Black men report that they don't attend church, but are spiritual? I would like to hear from first, Keith Slaughter is, he's a pastor, professor, activist, community leader, and just one of the pillars of liberation theologian. He also actually literally wrote the book on Black pastoral care for Black men. So please, we want to hear from you first, sir. And then we'll slide over into Reverend T's response.
Thank you, Reverend Terrace and Sister Monique, Brother T, and Dr. Jones. This is an issue that I am it's very sensitive to me and sensitive for me because, as a pastor that's currently serving, I see it as my responsibility kind of to be the coalesce, like in Ecclesiastes. The coalesce is the one who gathers. And that's the principal function, I think, of a pastor is to gather people for the purposes of healing, of deliverance, teaching, just betterment.
Yeah.
And when we look at the fact that Black men, and thank you for the statistics that you raised, and I believe that they are accurate. I believe those statistics are accurate because I'm seeing it in the pews.
Wow.
I think the principal reason is that, and I know that the church is a Black female institution that has Black male leadership. When you have over 80% or around 80% of the population of most churches being comprised of women, what we see is a woman a womanist institution that is led by men, which is the manifestation of injustice. It's injustice personified, right? And so men, from my experience of dealing with brothers around this issue of church membership, church attendance, Black men tend to not wish, and I'm gonna deal with this from my perspective as a psychologist now. From this perspective, I'm gonna take the pastor hat off and put on the psychologist. Okay, there's an idea known as penetration when it as it relates to spirituality, as well as psychology, right? Penetration is necessary for a therapist to be able to connect with a client.
Right.
And the same principle in the church, because we go to therapists, we go to see the therapist for the same reason we go to church, right?
Yeah.
Right. Looking for healing, we're looking for deliverance, and we just use clinical terms in the clinical setting as opposed to using spiritual terms that we use in the church setting.
So it was something like A.T. Hart Touré would have said, touch the spirit, something to touch the spirit.
Yeah, and I argue in my book, Therapeutic Dimensions of Black Preaching, that the same therapeutic impact that is felt in an individual counseling session for whites is commensurate or it is similar to what Black people experience in church in mass.
Wow.
Because we are wired as community. We rise together, we fall together, we receive the blessings together, we receive the curses together. I never forget, while I was doing my doctoral work, one of my dissertation members, faculty, the great Carolyn McCrary, the great Dr. Carolyn McCrary, became angry with me because I wouldn't change a piece that had to do with Black men and Black women suffering together. She wanted to break out the suffering of Black men from the suffering of Black women. And I said to her, when they told our people that it was time to go to the field before day in the morning, they didn't say, all right, all the brothers go to the field and the sisters can sleep in. No, so we tend to suffer together. We tend to rise and fall together. And men tend, however, to resist penetration. And from a psychological perspective, that is what occurs in a worship experience. We're trying to penetrate, to get to the heart, to the soft, fleshy part of the human, so that transformation might become reified. And
thank you.
So I have a fear of penetration. Black men don't want to be touched in the spaces that Black preachers are attempting to touch. And I think there's a bit of underlying homophobia associated with the penetration idea, and Black men feeling as though that the space that is required for me to expose in order for me to engage this process fully, I'm not willing to go there. And when I go there, I see a Black man in charge, right? It's a Black man in charge, and what he's in charge of doing is penetrating me. He's in charge. His job is to get to the place that I'm trying to conceal. And now, and since all of the people who really there are women, and I really hate Black men because I hate myself. I really hate Black women because I hate my mama. And so, it's a place of serious discomfort for men. I can just this past Sunday in the preaching in the preaching moment, looking in the faces of the men and looking at how they were actually receiving what I was saying, or up against or compared to how sisters were receiving what I was sharing. It's astounding to see it, but I think men have to really be in contact with their feminine side in order, and not only in contact, but have an honoring kind of relationship with their feminine side to be able to experience what worship actually has to offer.
Wow.
And I think that's avoided because of those and other reasons, but because I got my colleagues here, I'm gonna back up and let y'all. There's several other reasons I think that are into that, but I think the number one reason is the fear and the resistance to spiritual penetration.
Wow.
But
you know what? When you say spiritual penetration, I'm going to say I thank you, and I greatly appreciate your wise words, especially with all your experience and knowledge in the pastoral care area. I'm going to even compare it to I'm going to say the word vulnerability. And recognizing that in order to love, in order to trust, in order to have any emotional connectivity possible, you have to be willing to be vulnerable in a space that is, yes, female populated, but very much male dominated. And oftentimes you do not share in the power of that male domination unless you are related to the pastor. I want Reverend T to go ahead and respond.
Can I just slide this little piece in? I was grading a student's paper just yesterday, and he was talking about I asked the question. I'm teaching the psychology of religion, one of the classes I'm teaching, and I was asking I asked them to talk about their first spiritual experience wherein they were physically moved. Okay.
Wow.
And he said he had gone to church. He was about 15 or 16 years old. And he stood in the prayer line, and the pastor laid hands on him, and he began to cry and weep uncontrollably. And I thought about the time that happened to me, the first time I, quote, felt the Holy Spirit for the first time in my life. It just so happened to happen to me when I was standing in the shower praying, right? And trying to figure out what God was going to do with me, right? And that sense of being unable to control your physical, your physicality, you don't have control of it. I think that is frightening for men as well. And
Doc, don't you call that the what did you call that? The psychosomatic response to the God presence?
We can call it that.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Reverend T. Go ahead. Please respond to what Pastor Slaughter said.
Yeah, I would say that's
Doc touched on perfectly the pastoral spiritual care. Like, there's nothing I can add. I'm gonna fly this plane in through a Black Studies community activist kind of perspective. That's my pedagogy, and I would say I fundamentally 100% agree with the brother. It is tied into power. It is tied to vulnerability, and it's tied how we taught our manhood, right? So as you were talking about the penetration, and it's funny, I used to be a certified educator, CP supervisor, and training, and that was one of the things we used to talk about. Can you be vulnerable in the process? And one of my learnings was, why do you need me to be vulnerable? What are you going to do with this information, right? So anybody's ever been in a barbershop, I'm sure the two brothers can attest to this. We rarely get real names in the Black barbershop among men. It's Doc, is politician. That's what they used to call me. Dr. Jones, I'm sure you had a nickname. And the minute, especially brothers over a certain age, if you press them about their real name, I'm trying to be holy here, so I'm not going to exactly say what they say, but it's something to amount of, motherfucker, why you want to know my real name? Right. And because you want me to be vulnerable for what, man? How I know you ain't with the police? How I know you ain't with that dude that's mad at me? And so it's this wall up that we're taught as survival, right? And so then we walk into this space, and it's this other man, and not all of the pastors and brothers are righteous. So oftentimes we sit back and watch all these sisters be emotionally manipulated or move in a certain space. and we say we ain't gonna get us. This is why in my church, even in our D-Men program, sis, I struggle with the first thing we start off in our first class. We need to break you and crush you and grind you and stuff to rebook you. And I'm like, no, doc, we ain't finna do that. I worked too hard to develop Terrence. And I walk in the room and now you talking about you finna beat me. You only break animals and slaves, right?
But
And
that's
so,
the deconstruction we talk about it in
but that's
seminary
not
as well, though.
deconstruction, right? So because, and I think we play these word games. Deconstruction is Doc asking me to, and I'm using you, Doc, because you spoke first, got me thinking about the penetration motif. That's deconstruction, right? Breaking me, wanting to see me cry and get on the floor and snot to show some kind of epiphany moment. Well, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not going to be entertained. And so when you put this up, I'm not going to be your emotional entertainment. So we have these power dynamics in the Black community, right? The pastor space, the one place that Black men have unfettered, unquestioned power, right? But then I have to surrender that at my door. Power I've worked hard my whole life to get. So I gotta fight through social. I gotta fight through family. And then I come in and then it's this space where if I don't talk a certain way, if I don't have a certain rhythmic voice, then I'm dismissed or reduced. Yeah, I'm not gonna be vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
I'll give you a perfect example. I grew up Joe Witness. I'm not ashamed of it. My mom and dad, who they were, I will fight you if you say anything bad about them. We're gonna square up, we're gonna take it to business. They're my peoples, right?
But you said it real fast, like you said Joe Witness, like you didn't even say the whole word, but okay.
But I am unapologetically who I am.
Gotcha.
It was a struggle coming to mainline church because folks it was this expectation that I would renounce my parents and my family upbringing to be in this space, right? Now, why would I do that shit? Why am I going to renounce my mom and my dad? My mom and my daddy, right? It wasn't like they worked on Ben Carson's campaign.
But y'all a cult. You got to say you a cult in order to receive to Jesus. Okay, right.
You know what I'm saying? And so it may vary. I've been wanting to come to ministry. I wanted to come into ministry in my early 30s. Wow. But I wasn't going to be broken or renounce my family of origin or let people say crazy stuff like my mama who's going on to glory is in hell to fit into your construct.
Gotcha.
So I remember when I was in Board of Examiners, a sister stood up, and when we talked about the past, she said, I'm really praying for you because I know you worry about your mother. I said, I don't worry about what she is. I believe she's with the Lord. Or how can you say that? Can she a Joe Whit? I don't want to fight an old lady in the Board of Examiners. I'll never get ordained that way. We should abandon this conversation. And so it's been doubled down.
I can feel you. I can feel you in that, you know, what it takes for you to sit in the pastor seat, what it takes for you to sit in that chair. You have to slice and dice parts of yourself in order to fit there. Do you think that discomfort or that same almost the pledging is the same for people in the pew?
Yes. And so I'm trained. I am trained, right? CPE, working on D-Men, MDiv, went through the ordination. And it's hard for Terrence, right? It is extremely hard. I wanted to fight all last month in Savannah. If one more person say something about breaking me, I remember I finally told Doc, I hit him with the George Jackson quote in Soledad Brothers, you will never count me among the broken men. Literally started my spiritual autobiography saying, I'm invoking this assignment with the words of George Jackson, you will not count me among the broken men. And what's crazy is the church is a place of brokenness and breaking, but then we tell people come in, right? We want men to come into this space.
My God.
Right?
Rev, I love you, but
go ahead.
Mo this is her expertise right here. She got to jump in at this part.
Go ahead, because I see her, she sat up, so I'm tag out like wrestling. I'm done.
Woo! The Holy Spirit is with us.
Listen, when you talked about brokenness, I honestly have no words, because that is the key. We are broken. Our church is supposed to draw in those who are broken. And for some reason, our men, they really take issue with that. So I work with, I help pastors prevent and overcome burnout. I can count on one hand the number of pastors who actually want to work with me because they do not want to get vulnerable. I have women pastors who come, they're all for it, but men, it's not happening because they, for whatever reason, and I'm actually here to learn and to listen to you guys because I want to know. But for whatever reason, the men will not break. They will not break.
Because
And
I had two knockdowns in the last 2 years on film.
yeah.
Not even in the secret, not even in the privacy of my own space, but on film in front of a camera with probably thousands of people watching. Not once, but twice.
Wow.
You know, you know,
and that's that point of spiritual evolution. Go.
Right.
Not see you yet. You know, you know what I'm saying?
Dr. Darrell, please give us some insight on that unwillingness to be, in a sense, broken, the resilience, the attitude of having resilience and not wanting to be broken to hit the broken spaces. Let's talk about that.
You know, first, let me say this. I'm just so glad to be here. And I wish I would have had Dr. Slaughter around me when I was working on my dissertation, because he said something that just really, I took Dr. Mafiko for a lot of courses when I was over at SITC, and he had an issue with me because he said I was too full of colloquialisms. So I would keep stuff real, and I would say words that you're not supposed to say on seminary campuses. And when you said the penetration, Dr. Slaughter, I said, nah, they want to fuck you in the church. You know, so I would say stuff like that. And Dr. Mafiko would have issues with me using those kind of words. One of my first papers I wrote in Dr. Mafiko's course was they made a booty call to Bathsheba. That was during the time of the Mike Tyson thing. So he had issues with me from then on. But what happened is, growing up in the church, me like similar other black men, the only thing I saw in church were soft men who I didn't want to be like, and the lead man was taking everybody's money and trying to control everybody. So that wasn't gonna happen to me. So I grew up in the church, and then I started finding out that if you read what they're reading, you have just as much power as they do. So growing up in the traditional churches, they didn't want to share too much information on where they got their stuff to try to control us with. So once I started finding out that I could read the Bible for myself, there are some commentaries, there are some concordances, some Bible dictionary, I felt at a young age, I knew just as much as the pastor. So now I'm a threat to the pastor, because you know how they say, and on the one man in the house, that's how a lot of pastors feel in the church. And that's reason there are not a lot of men in the church.
Lord Jesus. See, now you're trying to tell the truth now, Doc. See, now you're trying to tell the truth now. See, now you're trying to tell the truth about this vulnerable space and people in the pew and men who are expected to come in the pew and not only bow down to the pastor, but watch him get the big piece of chicken, but also watch their loved ones jump up and down and get euphoric over what this man has to say. And for 2 days later, pastor said this and pastor said that. Come on, somebody.
And you know, and the Lion King did a great illustration of that with Scar and Mufasa. Mufasa. So here it is, all the men in the church are the Scars, and you have one Mufasa. And most men ain't gonna let no one man just rule him like that in front of his wife, in front of his kids, in front of his mother. So men would stay away from that environment. So what I found out was, I thought the African-American church tradition that I grew up in was too overly emotional. And I believe in the emotional, but I don't believe that we have to express it the way women express it. So if you're trying to force me to express myself the way the women express themselves, that's a problem. And then we go bump heads with that. So I think that has a lot to do with men. So what I've learned to do in the church, I find out what excites men. I went to a church once, they had TVs in the bathroom playing ESPN. You know, they had like summer basketball league programs in the church. You need to do things that's gonna bring men to the church. If you want men in the church, men ain't gonna come and just sit at your feet and listen to you. Men have to be busy. They want to work. They like to build, and they like to do certain things away from women. So when you get like women, men gonna act differently, because this is my queen. I'm not gonna let her see me acting like this, as opposed to how I act when I'm with my boys. So they
My
have.
God.
You know, I would slightly disagree, Doc. It's almost like martial arts. I will sit at the feet of a sensei, who I believe is well-intentioned, knowledgeable, and can actually teach me something. So there are men.
I agree with you on that. And I
There
would
are- there are
but
men-
look at 10 men, only about 3 of us would do that.
Yeah, because I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
There's a particular disposition that you would have to have in order to sit at someone's feet. I mean, you could do that, but you ain't gonna do that in front of your lady. A lot of people ain't gonna do that in front of your lady. Go ahead, Dr. Slaughter, please respond.
I think that Reverend T, Dr. T hit something as well as Dr. Darrell. The whole idea of competence in ministry has been overlooked as being a necessity in Black churches that are not affiliated with say a denomination that has placed requirements for education on their clergy, right? I'm Baptist, right?
Right.
Bred, and right now I'm just a Jesusist because I ain't no Christian, because I started saying a long time ago, if George Bush a Christian, I can't be the same thing. You know, I got to figure out something else that I am other than that, because I ain't. I'm something different. So I'm a Jesusist, right? But and the attempt to be competent and relevant is something that keeps me up at night. It's the reason that I try to write and to do the scholarship that is necessary in order to be something above mediocre.
Jesus.
You know, but let's be honest, the overwhelming majority of Black clergy are wallowing in shallow ponds of mediocrity. And because of that, I think that's another integer in the equation of the question as to why Black men don't want, you know, like Dr. Darrell said, hell, I know as much as this Negro know. You know, I grew up with
daily bread myself.
That's real though.
Right.
listening to preachers that couldn't spell preach.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny that you say that, because I'm often accused of being elitist or snobbish, and it reminded me of I'm a Southside Chicago dude. I wasn't in the gang. I was gang adjacent, as I call it. I've seen some things. So when I came to the church, this idea that all of that knowledge is erased, right? I worked in academy. I worked for nonprofits, executive director, taught. So when I came into ministry, I had that belittled under this is different, right? This ain't the same thing as that. Well, I'm organizing people, right? Yeah, making decisions based off of the information ahead of me. Yeah, got to balance the budget. Yeah, well, that's executive director. No, it ain't. That's just passion or something different. No, my dude, it's and so to your point, you asking me not to be who I am because you're intimidated. I don't want to be that way, because in my world, when a cat's intimidated by you, that's how stupid stuff happen, right? So the guy that really struggling with you, that's the one that want to pick the fight with you. That's the one that's coming after you. And you see it in the church. That, I mean, one day I'm gonna write the book on my theory between church men and church boys. You see these guys who are raised in the church. This is their bubble. This is all they know. This is what you talk about. If you took them out the church, put them in the club, put them in the grocery store, they couldn't talk.
They wouldn't be able to make it back home.
Listen. And then when the real brothers want to find Jesus and come in there, there's this immediately trying to break you down, trying to put you back in your place. Don't ever be ahead of me. And so I think that you touched on that very well. Like, you can't be incompetent and claim leadership, man. It's just, you can't say
that's good. That's good, Reverend Dr. T.
Going back to the barbershop motif that we talked about earlier. You know, in the barbershop, you hear a lot of the real. And if you think about it, they would tell you, they just ask us a question, what's the difference between the pimp and the pastor? And a lot of time, it's hard to tell the difference. They used, back then, growing up in the 70s and 80s, they drove the same cars. They both tried to break down their bottom dollars and all those things like that. So you have to ask yourself now, what's the big difference between the two? And when you start looking at it from that perspective, you have to realize I have more to offer him than he has to offer me. Because now if I get the same book that he's studying, I could be just as effective. And it's so unfortunate that we see the church like that, because that's not the intent that Jesus left for us. And that's not the place that church that Jesus left us. So
Yeah,
now
that ain't the blueprint.
we got to look at what happened growing up as a kid. If you look at the church, most of them little boys come with their mother. Dad is staying home watching football with the guys. And then the boy can't wait to get old enough so he can stay home with dad and watch football also. So he don't have to go to church.
That's good. Dr. Slaughter, you had a couple of words that you wanted to.
I wanted to get it because when you talked about when Terrence brought up being from the South Side of Chicago, okay, I started in ministry in Chicago on the South and the West Side, right? South and West Side of Chicago, and I'm actually in the middle. This is one of the several pieces that I'm in the middle of writing now. But one of the pieces, you know, when I first went to Chicago, one of my dad is and my dad was licensed to preach in Chicago, and you know, and there is and it is dissolving now. We're watching it dissolve, and it's something that I actually lament. That was a fraternity among pastors, but on the South Side of Chicago and the West Side of Chicago, the pastors actually ran the communities. They actually were political operatives. Yeah. And actually in Chicago still are to a certain extent, you know. And so these brothers had, you know, not only did they have Cadillacs or Lincolns and gold and nice suits, but they had the power to go with it because they had the connections to City Hall, right?
Wow.
So, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and you know what I'm talking about when we talk about Chicago politics, yeah. Right? The old machine, they used. The black pastor was used by the machine to control the people in the communities based upon the church, and they received benefits and resources based upon their ability to bring home the votes. And so but then again, that's another thing, another instance that caused thinking black men not to
want to participate.
Yeah. And just like y'all saw it in Chicago, I'm born and raised here in Atlanta. I saw the same thing here. There's some pastor name that we can call today that could still make stuff happen in Atlanta, and they're almost retired, probably pastor emeritus now.
Yeah.
Wow.
The same principles.
So in that y'all, we go ahead. In that we have brought
myself.
I have a question. I have a question. So this is, like I said, I really wanted to hear from these men. How do we begin to change this is what I would like to know.
That's the question. That's what I was trying to ask, Monique. Thank you, sis.
I think
I wanted to ask, well, this is why I wanted to frame it up. If you had one thing, if it was one new rule, if it was one thing from now on we would all do, if it was one thing that we should all know, if it was one process we should all complete, what is that one thing? I want to start with Dr. Darrell, then I want to do Reverend T, then I want to do Dr. Slaughter, if that's okay. Just that one thing. Just give me that one thing that we could change from now on.
I would say authenticity. You know, you have to be authentic. You have to be vulnerable. You have to let people know you don't know it all, and you have to seek help.
Well, see, you might as well start right there. Because
we already said everybody seeking help. Ain't nobody help seeking.
Let the man finish.
That's it.
Y'all, my wife informed me I got 4 minutes before I got.
Look, let's cut across. With Doc, if you don't mind, let's cut across the field and let Dr. Slaughter. Then we're going to go back to you, Dr. Darrell, then Dr. T.
I think we need to militarize. I think that the church exists for liberation purposes, and that's what we say. And when people don't see us doing anything to make that happen, I think that they lose confidence in us. I look at the Nation of Islam. I saw a little piece on TikTok the other day of a group of young boys who were marching militarily, right, as in preparation for warfare. I think that in the church, I got an idea in my mind, and as soon as this COVID thing let us all the way go, I want to call it MOB, Men of Beloved, Mob. And we begin to enforce policy and law in our community, because I don't have the luxury of doing middle class ministry. I do ministry in the trap. That's why I call myself trap pastor. I do ministry in the trap. And if you ain't able to militate in the trap, then you don't have respect. So that's what I would say. I think that we need, as Black men, to embrace that desire to be in a military kind of mindset, so that we would say to ourselves that we are men because we're ready to fight and we're ready to die for our women, for our children, and for our community. And I thank you for allowing me this time.
And God bless you, brother. Thank
appreciate
you
it,
so
brother.
very much. All right, we're gonna keep the conversation going. We appreciate you, Doc. God bless you.
Bless y'all, man. Bless y'all. And thank you. Please excuse me. I'm finna go see these here. I'm finna go sit in the brown section, and in my heart, I love the Steelers. Lord have mercy.
We just praying for you.
Enjoy.
Reverend T, Dr. T, what do you think about this whole concept of having a militarized, Christian kind of men's nation ministry? What does that look like, and how will we even start?
As a historian, I'm always shocked when folks left of center. I think our biggest problem is left of center focus. We can deal in rockets and dreams, but reality, what does that mean? Ain't nothing said because Freddie's still dead, right? I think that's a brilliant idea, considering the fact that folks are shooting up our church, folks are robbing our church. My family stay complaining about the lack of security I have. So yes, I think it's a great idea. Now, somebody out there, some saint out there, God bless their heart, is gonna say, that ain't never happened. Oh my God. We literally sing songs about this. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm in the Lord's army. I'm a Christian soldier, onward.
How we gonna be soldiers if we ain't ready to fight?
But when less than savory brothers come in, or tired evil white supremacists come in our church, we ain't got nothing. And I think brothers would appreciate the structure. It's not the theology that draws people to the nation. I mean, that's a part of it, right? But we're way past the time of folks arguing over white Jesus. It's the structure and meaning of life. It's the fact that you have given me something, tools that I can take so I'll never, ever go back to that which I left. So I believe that's a powerful tool that the church has. And we need to do it spiritually. We need to do it emotionally, mentally, but physically. And the men's group need to be honest. Like, I really, really struggled in men's spaces where we're not honest. Is one who is an intimate partnership. We're trying to figure out if we get married or not. When I call a brother about marriage, I don't want to hear cliches, happy life, happy wife. No, I need a brother. I'm having a real problem here. This thing about to fall apart. Can you talk to me, brother? Can you hear me? I struggle, especially among clergy. We can't answer simple questions. I asked one pastor, hey man, how did you and your wife survive? Y'all both clergy. Well, the Spirit of the Lord, you just trust in the Spirit.
Yeah.
Because you know what? That same question.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
We both are clergy. So
what you're saying is brothers will be able to come to church, feel more welcome, feel more invited, feel like they have a place, feel functional if you are able to have real world conversations. Give me theories, give me knowledge that I can apply, give me wisdom right now that I can actually see, give me something that I could use. That's what you're saying.
Yes. So I'll give you a perfect example of this, right? This is why I defend my childhood. Years ago, one of the nice gentlemen that I grew up at the Kingdom Hall said, in marriage, it's not you and your wife should have different interests, but there needs to be something that you come together with that's y'all's, that won't let people come into your marriage. So if you like football and she likes basketball, then maybe you all should start liking baseball together because you both like sports, right?
Okay.
Practical advice, I heard that 20 years ago, I have never forgotten. If I ask the average pastor, well, you just got to wait on the Lord. And when your loins get... So, hey, Pastor, there's this fine, thick chocolate sister that keep bringing me pound cake. I don't know what to do. Well, you see, sometimes you got to be wiser than the serpent. I'm getting trouble. You are the most useless guy on the planet.
Look,
so I need some real answers. And now,
right.
but then, brothers, and I'm be quiet. But then, if I go to my sister here, Sister Monique, Dr. Monique, she'll say, "Hey, man, you just need to stop talking to this bro." You know, whatever she'll say, right? And so then they get mad because we get more honesty and integrity from the sisters than the brothers, and I don't know why that is. But I think if we added the purpose that Doc talked about, the authenticity that Dr. Jones talked about, and then the truthfulness and transparency. And so this season, I told my churches I'm preaching, I'm done talking about y'all. I'm gonna tell you where I struggled with, because we probably got the same struggles, and I'm gonna say that we journey together. So I ain't finna say y'all need to pray more. I need to pray more. I'm not finna say y'all are busy with busy work. I'm busy with busy work. And you know what? They appreciate that. So I think we also got to get to that point. And I'm done.
Oh my goodness. No, you're not done. That was a drop the mic moment. Go ahead.
So listening to what all you guys said, that's the same thing I hear from young people who said that, you know, we're like, well, how do we get young people in church? It's exactly what you mentioned. So it seems as a whole, the church just needs to be more authentic, period.
And really, in addition to being authentic, the church needs to find out what it's standing for right now in 2022. You know, the same thing the church stood for in 1950. We're not there's this phrase, methods stay the same, but I can't think of the name of it anyway. But what I was getting ready to say is, we as a church, we need to become more of an investment organization. We need to invest in the lives of those, you know, you got all these people in your church who know how to do stuff. You should be able to get them to go down, register, make businesses, so they can come in and get these businesses operated, so they can tithe money into the church, so the church can put money into other people's businesses within the community. And the way you build a community is through their finances. Because if you show him how to take care of his family, you got him. If you show a man how to take care of his family, he's going to be loyal to you. So you show him how to get the type of business skills that he needs. Show him how to be a good husband. Show him how to be a good father. What man would leave an organization like that?
Amen. Well, I tell you what, y'all, we have definitely had us a conversation on tonight with what has been said. Definitely recognizing that the authenticity is key. We saw that the heart, we heard in Dr. T's presentation that, you know, if you have a heart for the people, then the people will be able to receive you. And then we also know if we are organized and we have a focus and we are intently, as Sister Monique might tell us, we have our organizational strategy and our plans, you know, together, and our methods, that we're not burned out. So we're not attracting burnt out people in the ministries. Then we are on our way to doing some real work. I wanted to tell you guys, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you for giving me your energy, and thank you for your real and authentic, scholastic, theologically sound responses on sex in the church, where we have conversation about sex, sexuality, and sexism in ways that God's people can really be benefited.